I just want to extend best wishes to a member of the Middletown family, Patrolman Jay O'Neill, was involved in a motorcycle accident Friday night while off duty, and he suffered some extensive head trauma injuries. We've been updated since then, and the recent update now is he's progressing very well. But, so our prayers are being answered, and we certainly want Jay and his wife Josie and his mom Mary Beth and his dad James to know that his Middletown family is behind him and supporting him. And we'll be there with, through this, the road that he has ahead of him. So I just wanted to wish Jay our best and wish and let his family know that we're there for him. Okay. All right, item number 1. Pursuant to Rule 25 of the Rules of the Council, citizens may address the town on one subject only. Said subject is substantive town business, neither discussed during the regular meeting nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak for no longer than 5 minutes and must submit a public participation form to the town clerk prior to the start of the meeting. All items discussed during this section will not be voted upon. Okay, we have a couple people. Gregory Hewitt. Greg, name and address, please.
Good evening, Greg Hewitt, 25 Olives Way, Middletown, Rhode Island. I would like the council to reconsider your decision to not discuss the school unification with Newport. Your earlier decision ignored 46% of our voters in Middletown, and I believe your decision was ill-informed and lacked both vision and leadership. Your actions did not take into account the long-term impact on our students, the taxpayers of the town, or the community at large. Our community deserves a much better from our elected leaders. There is an organization called Citizens Exploring School Unification. The homepage is cesu.news. I would encourage each of you to visit it to educate yourselves on what school unification means to this community and to the Quinnipiac Island at large. That organization is a nonprofit, and it is set, what we're trying to do is to educate the public on school unification. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And we're knocking on a lot of doors, and there are a lot of people that are very disgruntled and very disappointed in the actions of this council, the 5 of you that voted not to even hold a discussion, except for Councilman Flynn and Councilman Von Villas. I would ask you to absolutely reconsider that. I think you're doing an incredible disservice to this community. And you may all be gone and no longer be in office when the tax bill hits this town, because that school, our high school, is going to need to be replaced at some point, aside from the academics and the curriculum opportunities that are going to be lost for our students to compete in the world. We are not just trying to educate people against Portsmouth and Newport in Middletown. We're trying to educate our students to compete across the world. And what you have all done to ignore that decision is a disservice to every person in this town. Thank you.
Okay. Anton Viveris. Anton?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Anton Viveris, 110 Indian Hill Road, Middletown. The planning board met, I believe, on September 11, 2018 to discuss the ABD zoning overlay. There was no public input allowed, but there was a good discussion between the chairman and the vice chairman, but I had to leave early and could not stay for the outcome. But I thought I could watch the end of the meeting on my computer. I was surprised to find out that the meeting wasn't taped. When I asked, I was told that the planning board meeting was not a regular meeting nor a hearing, and therefore was not taped. There was a quorum. Before I thought that made a public meeting when you have a quorum, even though there was no public input was taken. I thought boards and committee meetings were to be taped, especially when you have a quorum. Other committee meetings, like the subcommittee for the budget, when the council has a special meeting, there may not be any input, but it's taped. So I would like that checked, and if that's a loophole, I hope that somebody proposes to close that loophole. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
I got a call earlier today, a request by the vice chair of the school committee by way of Mr. Brown to move item number 19 up. I'm gonna move it up next. The vice chair has a personal issue going on, and I can respect that. So I'm gonna move it up, number 19.
Okay, now we gotta read it, sorry.
There's a memorandum from myself in regards to our Middletown School athletic tennis courts.
Okay, motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
Okay, motion second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I put this on the docket. I've had a number of inquiries from residents in regards to their children. I'd like to discuss how we're going to proceed with the needed athletic complex tennis court repairs. I'd also like to be briefed on what plans we have to ensure that our students that are currently involved in the program has sufficient courts to practice and compete on during the repairs. In addition, what is the current estimated cost to repair our tennis courts? And I would also like to know if there are or were any preventive maintenance policies and procedures in place that could have prevented this. In closing, I've asked the superintendent of schools to be here this evening, who's here. I asked our school facility director. I was advised he can't attend, as well as representatives from the school committee. So without any further ado, Superintendent Krager, if you could come to the mic, if you're going to be addressing these questions that I have, and I'll go down them one at a time again. But I think the first thing is, what plans do you have in place to ensure that our students have tennis courts to practice on and to compete on?
Sure. I did provide our town administrator with repair and maintenance history for the Gaudet Middle School tennis courts. I think you probably received that tonight.
Late this afternoon we got it.
Yes. So I would like to frame my comments around the facts regarding the repair and maintenance history. So back in February 2008, an RFP was developed in-house to resurface our basketball court and tennis court. The design and specifications were based on a generic U.S. Tennis Court and Track Builders Association document that was developed in 1998. At that time, when we did this, there was no civil engineer performing any parts of the project. We just didn't do it then. If this work were to happen today, that would have been part of our scope, that there would have been a civil engineer involved. So the contract back in 2008 was awarded to Narragansett Improvement Company. The original sum of the contract was $256,000. There were change orders roughly totaling $8,000. Some of the reconstruction notes: no record of certificate of analysis of document that would identify specific asphalt delivered construction materials. Now, my knowledge, all asphalt is not the same product. There are different mixtures of asphalt, so we could not find in our records any documentation of that. Per the project file, old gravel base was left in place. Again, if we were to do this project today, we wouldn't approach it this way. No record of subsurface testing for compacting or quality of the base material was done. We couldn't find any. And the new posts that were installed back in 2008 were 18 inches concrete base. So the recent repairs, to bring you up to date on the recent repairs, we have new concrete bases, the post and sleeves were installed, and the new base is a different measurement. It's 28 by 28. These new bases correct the deficiencies with the old 18-inch base. So bringing us up to date in terms of the cost, the DPW and the school department received proposal to repair the cracks in the tennis court and the basketball court. The tennis court, the price is approximately $51,000. The basketball court, $27,000. It is to be noted that these repairs only carry a 2-year warranty. We do know that the court, usually the warranty is about 20 years for the tennis courts and basketball court. So we would engage a civil engineer to consult regarding the asphalt, as I mentioned, to determine the compact materials and the cracks in the court in both the tennis and the basketball courts. And the engineer stated that issues listed in the reconstitution notes from, the engineer would look at those notes from the installation in 2008. In terms of maintenance, our grounds staff personnel would follow the following tasks. We would install windscreens annually to mitigate the wind on the courts and the debris from the surface. We did purchase new screens in 2018. We would remove and install nets as needed. And effective this year, we are going to remove the tennis posts and install sleeves and caps annually. So that's the history of the maintenance.
Thank you for going back to 2008. Okay? So what lessons have we learned? Did we learn any lessons about this?
So absolutely. I mean, what we know now, you can always Monday morning quarterback.
And this council's good at that.
Excuse me?
We're good at that. Monday morning quarterback.
We would have engaged a civil engineer. Back then, that wasn't called for or wasn't thought of in terms of a civil engineer. I know there's issues with roads around. You look at Providence, they put in a bicycle path. They didn't do the proper study on that. They had to take down that bicycle path. I think we here in town have had issues with our roads. You know, it is Monday morning cornerback. So going forward, we need to be proactive.
Okay. Let's get past the inferior asphalt or whatever we're discussing. Let's assume that it wasn't the right asphalt to put down. What plans, do you have any plans right now for this year? How we're gonna, so that we can, that our students will have a tennis court that they can play on?
They can use the courts now. The nets are up. We've talked to our AD. They can use the court now.
So they're fully functional now?
They are functional now.
You also mentioned the screens,
Yes.
okay? I remember years ago, we used to take the screens down every year, and from what I understand, they haven't been being taken down?
We are going to ensure that our ground staff does remove, puts up the screens and removes the wind screens.
Was there a reason why they haven't been done the last couple of years?
No.
I think the thing that bothers me also, you came to the council, you asked the council for roughly 27, I think it was $28,000 to repair the tennis courts, okay? And certainly, we're gonna do that for our students, that we want them to have good courts to play and compete on. But what bothers me is that, did you put anything in your capital expenditure request to ask for this kind of money? I mean, if you're monitoring this and policing this, and somebody's being held accountable for it, why does it take, all of a sudden, one day, it's like one morning, somebody woke up and said, oh, we got a 250-foot crack in our tennis courts, and they're not playable? I just can't put that together. I just don't understand it. So was there anything put in, or why didn't you put anything in your capital?
We didn't realize the extent of the crack.
Okay. So,
We are putting in the maintenance, as I said, the preventative maintenance. We're going to ensure that
we're
our
gonna
ground
start doing
staff
that. We're
does
gonna
that
start doing that,
going forward.
going forward.
Yep.
So, let me just ask you this, and I don't want to get into any job performance issues, but this certainly, the buck has to stop someplace. Now, whether it stops at you or it stops at the facility director, who I understand couldn't make it tonight, because I was going to ask him this question, do we have areas of responsibility? And as far as I'm concerned, he is the facility manager, you as our superintendent, the buck stops with you.
Absolutely, it
But
does.
I don't understand how something like this can be overlooked and nobody brings it to anybody's attention, nor was it in your capital expenditure request. I just don't understand that, and maybe you could shed some light on that.
I
Why?
have no light to share on it, other than, you know, things fall through the cracks, no pun intended.
So we have right now, we're gonna start with a policy, we're gonna start taking the windscreens down, because I understand
We're gonna take them down,
they
we're
took a
gonna
good
put them
beating
up,
that-
we're gonna take the poles down, cap them off.
because they're not cheap, and I understand they took a good beating being up the last 2 winters.
Yes.
In
And
fact, to the point where we can't even use them
the best of my
again.
knowledge, those poles, at some point in this 10-year period, were taken out at one point. I'm not sure that they were capped, but they were taken out, and then they weren't at one point. Same with this windscreen.
Okay, so it happened, you're telling us it's not gonna happen again.
We're going to ensure,
Was
we're gonna
anybody
put
held
thing-
accountable for this?
we're gonna put things in place, hopefully it won't happen again. Yes.
Okay, so nobody was held personally accountable for this? Nobody during a performance evaluation was brought to their attention, and nobody was held accountable?
A performance evaluation happened before this came to light.
Okay. Does any councilors like to ask any questions? Paul?
I do. So, I get it, it happened, who knows how the crack happened? It could be related to or not related to the non-capping of the,
No, I think it goes back to the compacting and the asphalt piece. Not because those poles weren't taken out and capped. It was a larger issue when we had a civil engineer look at it. It was the composition of the asphalt, and that the old court was really left as is and then just surfaced over.
so, in 2008, 10, 11 years ago, we spent a total of $352,000. And 10 years later, we have a crack, and you guys have school, dude. So you guys know when every single air conditioning filter needs to be changed. You know all of that. I find it extremely hard to believe that we didn't know, and this wasn't recorded, that
It was not recorded.
it was not. Are you sure?
I will check.
Because,
To my knowledge, it was not recorded. But I want to check. I don't want to say something that I don't have the data in front of me.
I believe it was recorded.
It was recorded.
Matter of fact, I know it was recorded.
Okay.
So, it is what it is. It's just, and you know, we're gonna do what we need to do to work together to fix this. But
Right.
this is a lot of money that, for something 10 years old. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, I think you guys know, like I said, when every single thing needs to be repaired, it's on a schedule and it's on your.
Preventative
You
maintenance.
actually have a program that tells you
We do.
stuff like that. So to say that it's not recorded and to say that it fell through the crack, no pun intended, okay. I just think, for whatever reason, it wasn't taken care of.
So when do you
So
know
it's-
when it was recorded,
It
that
was
I could go back and?
2017.
2017?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and in 2008, compaction tests were required. So, compaction tests have been required for probably 20, 25 years now. So, I mean, I'm not an engineer and stuff, but I do know a lot about that. So it is what it is. We need to fix it. I'm just wondering what type of other issues, capital-wise, are there out there that may be coming forth?
What type of,
Other issues like this that are out there that may be coming forth? That maybe you guys haven't addressed yet, that's all.
we will take a look, and I will get back to you.
Okay.
Council Lombardi?
Thank you for coming tonight, Mrs. Gregor. I was at the school committee meeting, I guess it was the last one, when Mr. Fonts addressed this issue, and no numbers were mentioned that night as far as what it was going to cost to fix it, but he did mention the test pits that were dug and that they found the old court and old material underneath that was never removed. And one of the things that he mentioned was that the companies will not guarantee, you say beyond 2 years, but it says here, the 11-year-old courts failed prematurely, and courts have 20-year lifespans.
The repairs would only be guaranteed 2 years, the repairs.
Okay, so once the new courts are put in, we're looking at, is there a guarantee, a written guarantee, warranty that's going to be out there so that should they fail again, for whatever reason, we're not going to be on the hook for this kind of money?
No,
Or the town's not going to be.
The data that I have shows that there should be a 20-year lifespan of courts, done correctly.
I mean, it was pretty obvious from what Mr. Font said after the engineers did the test pits, that somebody dropped the ball big time on that project. And what really bothers me is that you can't find any documentation or paperwork. At least that's what I just heard, I believe.
So
Back
I
then.
think the question was any recorded in school, dude. I will go back and check. I'm enlightened to hear that there was documentation in 2017, and I will check that
What I'm
tomorrow.
driving at, though, is when they did the original, I want to make sure I heard it right. So when they did the original, they redid the courts.
Yes.
Whether they resurfaced them or replaced them, was there paperwork, was there a contract, was there a guarantee or a warranty on those courts at the time? And how long would that have been?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because maybe I just didn't hear it.
Okay, I included the documentation from our town, to our town administrator,
Is it in
hot
this-
mix asphalt tennis courts,
Is it in this packet?
documentation. I included the RFP that went out as attachment 1, reconstruction, existing basketball courts, tennis courts, and fencing and gates. So that went out. You have that RFP.
So
You
we
also
just
have
got
the,
this. So, I haven't had a chance to review it. We just really, literally got this
I know you
tonight.
did, yes.
So, maybe if I had reviewed it and had a chance to read it, I wouldn't be asking any of these questions. And I'm just trying to be fair with you right now. That's why I asked. So I'll review it, and I just hope that, we don't have to deal with anything like this again. I mean, it was kind of disappointing, that we were scrambling last minute to find places for the kids to play tennis. Thank you.
Council Flynn, you wanted to make a comment?
Please. So it does seem that this may have been a combination of poor install by whomever was hired and poor upkeep. I have a couple of questions or comments. So in your maintenance, you say that ground staff will now be removing the stanchions and putting up the windscreen
We have a heads grounds person, part of our maintenance team.
So maintenance is going to be the responsible party.
Exactly.
We have a name to a task.
Yes.
That was my first thing. My second issue is, I'm looking at this price tag, $50,000 for potentially 2 years of having repaired tennis courts. And I'm a little concerned, to be honest with you. I don't have a solution, but, if you have 2 years of life and you repair it, in about 12 years, you've got, the cost of what you spent for brand new tennis courts, and you still don't have tennis courts.
New tennis courts, exactly.
I mean, I don't have a solution, but those numbers do bother me. I don't know if there's other companies that will give you a longer repair, a longer warranty, or if warranties are simply not viable in the circumstance because the base is flawed.
I think the latter is, your observation with the latter is true. The 2 years is what they told us they would warranty, given the base.
So then it's a conversation of, do you want to throw good money after bad, knowing the end result? I just don't know if that's good use of resources. That's my comment.
Okay.
I have a question.
Counselor Toronto.
Where it says the outstanding repairs required, number 4 says, these 11-year-old courts failed prematurely. It says courts have a 20-year lifespan. Is there any fallback position we have? We did the work originally. Was there a 20-year guarantee on this
I don't have that documentation in front of me, but I guess that's typically 20-year lifespan.
I know if I paid someone to put a basketball court in or a tennis court in, they told me I have a warranty for 20 years and it failed after 11, then I would probably reach back to them and ask them, what are we getting under our warranty of 20 years versus I'm reading that it only lasted 11.
I
Is that
think it
fair?
goes back to the issue about the compacting and the asphalt
Okay.
being faulty to begin with.
Okay, so did we have a 20-year warranty when we put the $350,000 into it?
I don't have that warranty in front of me. I'll get back to you.
That's what I was asking earlier.
All right, Superintendent Krager, would it surprise you if I told you that your facilities manager, director, David Fonts, was the one that made that request back in March of 2017?
What request?
The request for a work order to repair the cracks?
It wouldn't surprise me that he'd be doing his job if he did that.
Yeah, but you didn't even know there was a work order.
Yeah. I didn't.
Earlier tonight, you didn't know.
No, I don't know every work
And I
order
can
that goes through.
appreciate that, but it was your facilities manager that put the work order request in back in 2017.
Okay.
Okay, and so since 2017 to now 2019, I haven't seen anything like this show up on a capital expenditure request. I haven't seen anything except you saying we need money to fix the tennis courts. So nothing, your facilities manager put this request in himself in 2017, assigned it out to somebody, and nothing's been done. Is there a reason for that?
No, I will follow up. I don't know the reason.
It's just, I hate every time that you come in that I put you on the hot plate, okay? But unfortunately, that goes along with your job
It
as
does.
well.
It certainly
along
does,
with
and it
your
goes
job
along
as
with
well.
yours, too, to hold
Exactly.
people accountable.
But it's, I just feel it's this constant lack of attention to things like this. Now we go, something that may not have cost us this much money, and something that you weren't even aware of, because obviously you weren't, or I
I
would have
wasn't
hoped.
aware of a work order. I was aware of the cracks. I went over
Well,
and observed
If you were
myself.
aware of the cracks, why didn't you put something in your capital expenditure request that would maybe cover the repair of this? So you lose me with that. I don't understand why you wouldn't at least done that. It's like a lack of
Well,
attention.
you said that Mr. Fonts put that in,
He
that
did.
work order, so.
Back in March of 2017.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when you sit down and you're doing your budgets, and I'm not really sure how you do your budgets, but I would assume that you're sitting down with at least David Fonch, your facilities manager, and you're putting this together, that things like this would come to light. They'd have to surface, come to light. I mean, it's like, we get asked to put, you know, to help the school, and we're all in favor of that, to help the school, to make sure we have adequate tennis courts for our children, but it's like, why always the 11th hour? Why isn't there any attention paid to this throughout the course of the year? Why isn't this? This is something that's.
I'm not gonna make excuses. You know, it is what it is. I'm not gonna make excuses.
Okay.
We're dealing with the situation. It's come to our attention. You've enlightened us as well, and we will go forward with the situation. I can't rewind.
You did a
I
little-
can
you
make
did-
it better.
You did a little bit of homework when you sent this out, the information you did this afternoon. I'm really surprised you didn't look into the work orders to see if there was any work orders associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
I see the vice chair wants to make a comment.
Yep, well,
If you-
you did that work for me, so thank you. I will go back and look at
I'd
it.
be glad to do it again.
Okay.
Somebody's gotta do it.
I just want to comment, I think that a lot of our focus in the past couple of years has been focused with the bond money. So we are prioritizing, and we're doing that, and that's the projects that have been focused on with the capital improvements, to be able to, whatever the bond money wasn't doing. So we've been really focusing on structural, we've been focusing on asbestos removal and those kinds of things for, in the classroom. So it's not that the tennis courts were neglected, but I do, and that work order, didn't know about it, I'm glad you found it, Paul, that's good. But the point is now that we have this issue and it's come to fruition, we're going to rectify it. But it certainly wasn't an intentional thing. And those tennis courts are community courts. It's not just, they're not just used for our students, they're used by the community even off-season. So all summer long, when we don't have students on there, when you drive by Gaudet, there's tons of people on there using it. So it's tough because they're not able to be preserved like inside our buildings where we have total control over them. You don't have control over the public areas of our schools, things can happen. But again, as Mrs. Krieger said, the base of the courts obviously created the destruction for the cracks to come through.
Well,
And they
so
started
well.
out small, and they've grown over the course of the past couple of years with the weather, so that's made a big impact too. So I don't, you know, when those cracks came up in 2007, my curiosity of what that work order is, how big were they, what did they look like? Or did the past 2 winters make them more, larger? Or did they
It
create more
says the cracks are the length of the courts.
in
That's-
2017?
That's what it says.
But were they buckled, or were they just cracks?
Doesn't say that.
Right, so.
Did the work order talk about how wide the cracks were? Because
No, it
when I
doesn't.
went over and observed that, they were extremely wide.
Okay.
So I will
Yeah.
go research
Yeah,
that.
Counselor Flynn.
I just have a quick question. You said that the courts were, the nets were up and it was able to be used. So the courts are not unsafe right now.
No, they're not,
They're usable.
right.
So is the crack, I actually haven't been by, is it in a position that it isn't near where they play? It's
Well, it is, it goes across, it's a little farther from the net. You know, maybe 4 inches from the net line on the north side.
all right, but it's not hazardous to the players right
No.
now? So, you know, again, back to running the numbers, I guess, when I said I didn't have a solution, I guess one solution would be instead of throwing good money in a bad situation that isn't gonna change over the next 8, 12 years, start saving annually the money that you need for new courts and do what we did this year, try to come up with a partnership with other courts, other schools or communities that do have courts, and then do it and do it right.
Vice President.
So, Mrs. Kreger, you're gonna go back and look for the 20-year warranty before we
Yes,
spend any
the
money?
20-year
Because we
warranty.
have no problem doing it, we
Yep.
just wanna make sure that
I'm
if
going
we
back
don't
to
have
look for the 20-year warranty, and I'm going back to review the work order.
Okay, and, so, say the 20-year warranty doesn't cover this type of deficiency, right? So, you're saying that $27,000 is gonna fix that? If we're saying the old gravel's there.
51,000 will fix the tennis court.
Okay.
27 will
okay.
fix
I had
the
it backwards,
basketball.
I'm sorry. So you're saying $51,000 is gonna fix the crack. That's
With
what
a
you're being
two-year,
told.
with a 2-year warranty.
Okay, so,
27 for the basket.
so, and we're still gonna have the same old base that we're blaming, potentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same compaction from 2008 that we're blaming.
Exactly.
So then why are we doing that?
Well,
Why are we gonna
that
s-
was Councilwoman's
I know,
Flynn's.
but why are we gonna spend $51,000? If we have to spend more to do it right, I'd prefer to do that than to just kind of put a Band-Aid over it and come back in 3 years and go, now where's my number? Now we're $400,000 into this thing in 11 years, and we could end up with the same problem. I don't think it's right to do. I think we should figure out what the real problem is, even if it has to be dug up, and do it right. Because $51,000 to me, maybe I'm wrong, but if we're gonna use the old compaction, if we're gonna use the old material that's underneath there, what are we really solving? We're putting a Band-Aid on it.
We're buying 2 years, I guess. is
I don't think
what
we
we're
should do
doing.
that.
Good point. Originally, when you approached the town, you requested, and correct me if I'm wrong, 28,000 to
28
repair
for the post.
for the post. But that was the tennis courts included, right?
Yeah, it was just the tennis courts,
So-
the post.
Our tennis courts in what, 30 days now? It's been about 30 days ago, maybe, when that number first came to us? Maybe a month or so, 2 months, whatever it is. Now it went to 51. It went from 27 to 51,
To
Just for the
repair,
tennis
to
courts.
repair the cracks,
the tennis courts.
That's just
To
the
repair the
That's not
cracks.
the sleeves.
Not the sleeves.
Sleeves were done already.
not the
So,
post.
okay, so we paid 27 for the sleeves, and now we're gonna pay 51 on top of that. So now we're into this for about $78,000 for just the tennis court. And if we add the basketball court onto that, now we're over 100,000.
27. Add
Over
27.
$100,000. Okay.
So do you want us to go back and look at getting bids for brand new? Is that what,
I'm one vote. My
know,
vote
it's just
is.
a question.
Yes, my vote is to
And what-
say, my recommendation is to say, let's look at it to fix it right, because I don't think this is fixing it right. We came in and said, no compaction test. We came in and said, the old material, when it was redone in 2008, right? We're not fixing any of that.
Well, I'm
If
sure
that,
we
if
could
that is the
reuse-
issue.
and I'm sure we could reuse the post, they just,
Yeah, the
Those
post,
posts could be
because
reused
that was a
so
question
that
I had
cost would
when
have
we
to be
put
redone.
these new posts in, and the town council provided the dollars. Are we throwing money away with putting these new posts in? And the answer was no.
So,
Because they're removable, correct? They're a sleeve?
yes.
Yes.
Correct.
That's removable. We
Right.
can
So-
use them again.
Right, so if we look instead, so Rosemary's gonna look up this information, and then when, maybe we should look into the future of what would this cost, at least get some idea of dollars and some estimates.
Well, I
Yes?
think
Is that
the
a
core
suggestion?
sample, if a core sample was taken or is taken, I think it's gonna tell us a lot about the material. So Sean, I don't know what you're thinking, but I saw your hand go up, so.
I think we did do it, didn't we?
We
Didn't we
did.
get a
We
number
had an
like,
engineer come in and consult.
yeah, what was the number, like $400,000 to redo the tennis courts?
I don't know.
No, so I just want to clarify a couple things. So the quote of $51,000 repairs the crack, it also resurfaces all of the courts. There's a layer of a material that's placed as well as the painting of all of the courts. So there is a level of maintenance beyond the crack. As a point of information, to replace the estimate, this is the back of the napkin replacement per court is approximately $125,000. If you carry that sort of estimate across the 5 courts as well as the tennis courts, you're upwards over $850,000. So just, I only caution the council as we discuss this, that there is some analysis that's necessary before, or I would suggest there's analysis necessary before you commit to just replacing the courts. That's a significant capital project. It would essentially wipe out sort of our pay-as-you-go capital program next year. So there is some thought and that needs to go into this. I would suggest that it goes into the capital improvement program, thought process as we put next year's budget together. So just some points of information.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, anybody got anything else? We're gonna move along. I think we've,
We could do it in phases, right, Sean?
I think we
could
could
do that.
separate the tennis courts from the basketball courts.
yeah, maybe 2 at tops.
But the tennis courts, if you think about it, it's one seam across the 5 courts. It's one, like I said, this repair not only includes the cracks, but would include a new, essentially, it's like a skim coat that goes across the entire facility.
Goes across the basketball courts too?
No, that would only go across the tennis
Only the
courts.
tennis court.
So
I mean, it might bite us some time to do something like that.
I would like to see some results from the core samples. I don't wanna spend money if we don't need to spend
I agree.
for 2 years and then have to replace it anyway.
Counselor Toronto?
Yeah, we're gonna get a chance to see if there was a warranty on that. Just, what am I, I'm thinking of all the things we're doing, the school's doing. We've had a lot of conversations recently, about the school and education and buildings and maintenance programs and consolidating the schools with the town, to maintain the buildings. And so we're having those conversations now, right? I think we just had a meeting, Sean, talk about the consolidation of the school, of some of the departments with the town.
We did.
Okay? And so, I know you guys focus on education, and that's what you guys do best. I always kind of in the back of my mind are like, how do you know how to put a tennis court together? Like, if you got a bid, would you know if it's complete?
Well, and I rely on the people that are experts on my team for that.
Okay, and I don't know if David's ever put a court in. And so I'm just saying, we gotta use our resources to make sure these bids are accurate, because it sounds like to me, when we put the $350,000 into it the last time, we didn't do it right then. Because it didn't last.
No, we didn't consult with an
And that
engineer.
crack, and
We
that
didn't-
crack did not happen overnight. That's been there for years. And it's probably started small and got bigger. And so I just feel that in government, sometimes it's not just the school in different areas, but if it's an unlimited budget, we'll just fix it later. We'll put that down the road a little bit and we'll fix it later, which I think that we need to focus more on the town of pre-maintenance and making sure that we don't create a situation where we're talking 450 to, a lot of money to replace these courts. This isn't like we're replacing a fence. This is a big number.
It is.
And we let it get to this level. So that's the only thing that concerns me. And I know you're super busy with a lot of stuff going on. I'm not trying to, who's responsible for what. But as Paul said, I get concerned there might be some other things that we're not aware of that, we should look in the work order system and see if there's other things that maybe we should be taking, we should
I
be
think-
helping the school with.
I think the difference, though, is, and I have to say, in defense of what we do now, the difference of what we do now compared to what we did in 2008, and I've been on school committee for a long time, we now, everything we do, we utilize an engineer. We utilize those experts, whether it's the town engineer. If you think about it, the town has their own engineer, but there's a lot of projects that have been done over the years. We also, as a community, are evolving and growing and learning. So, things do happen and mistakes are made, but it certainly wasn't like we were trying to cut corners. When you hire somebody to do a project, the expectation is that they fulfill it. So I think going back and looking for what the warranty was is critical. But I also have to say, we are smarter today than we were in 2008. Every decade you get smarter. And so now we are much smarter as a community, every day, right? And we are much smarter as a community that when we do a project like that, we're not just going to do it on the surface, literally. We're going to make sure that we have the right experts. With the whole bond project, I think that's been a learning curve all the way through. Because everything we do now, we're making sure that we have that expert advice of engineers and things like that. So I think that there's a learning curve that has happened since 2008. Is this okay that this happened? No. Should we have looked at it sooner? Possibly, but then again,
All right,
it
I
was
want
decided.
to thank you for coming
But,
in
no,
tonight
I
and
just
answering
wanted
these
to say
questions.
that
We're going
we
to move
are-
this
No,
meeting
thank you.
along.
But we are getting, now we know that we could never do something like that.
Understood. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, consent calendar.
Okay, motion to approve the consent calendar minus items number 6, 7, and 11.
Second?
A motion is second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 6, Memorandum of Paul Croce, Chairman, Middletown Planning Board, with enclosures, RE, recommended zoning ordinance amended regarding definition of building height, requires advertising for public hearing.
Motion to receive said memorandum and advertise for public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Vice President?
Okay, so when I read this, I just wanted to make sure that, Peter, I have a question. Does state code supersede or take precedent over town code?
When it comes to definitions of how we measure building height, the state law controls. So there is one method and one definition of how that's done that applies throughout the entire state. And the problem is it's changed each year for the last few years, which has necessitated these changes. The most recent changes have to do with properties in the flood zone, which, and the council considered this because one of the actions that the town did out of concern that properties in the flood zone might, even though it's a 35-foot height, you might have a house that starts 10 feet above grade, and then you
Right.
start measuring to 35 feet from there. So the town did take steps to lower the allowable height of buildings on properties within the flood zone in anticipation of some of these changes that were coming down the pike from the state. But this is simply to conform what we have in our ordinance with the changes to state law. And actually tonight it's just for you to receive and to be advertised, and then it'll come before you with
Yeah.
Mr. Wolanski will be here to explain all
I
that.
just wanted to make sure, because as I read it, it just, I thought that, but it wasn't clear to me the way I was
Exactly.
reading it. So.
Council Santos?
Mr. President, regarding the number 6 and number 7, which we are going to be advertising, will this be a special council meeting? Or will this be a separate meeting, included in the council meeting?
That's a public hearing.
It would just be a public hearing that's
Public hearing.
included in your regular docket.
In the regular docket?
Yeah,
And get done by 10:30?
we'll see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7, memorandum of Paul Croce, Chairman, Middletown Planning Board, with enclosures, RE, recommended zoning ordinance amendments regarding mixed-use development projects. Article 27A requires advertising for public hearing.
Motion to receive said memorandum and advertise for public hearing.
Second?
Motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Council Flynn?
So I pulled this out because I served on the planning board when this ordinance was being developed. And the mixed-use concept, your residential combined with business, was introduced for Middletown in Middletown's 2014 comprehensive plan. And I can tell you that the ordinance, as it exists, was painfully and excruciatingly vetted. The sense of the planning board's conversation at the time was that the only way a mixed-use development works is if it works for the residents who live there. And the residents who are sharing the space, the walls, the floors and ceilings with the businesses that are also there. So the appropriate uses and hours were discussed and chosen very, very carefully. Supermarkets, for example, were omitted because of the activity level, the amount of garbage generated, and the attraction of rodents and vermin. The current ordinance's hours of operation are not random, again, but very carefully considered with the residential units in mind. Businesses, so my understanding is that the ordinance's revisions or suggestions are being proposed because no developers have utilized the ordinance yet. And, I have to say, if businesses can't meet the established standards of the mixed-use ordinance, they can ask for exceptions which can be decided on a case-by-case basis. I don't want to speak for the other counselors, but for example, I wouldn't live next to a pool parlor that's open till 11 p.m. And I wouldn't expect anyone else to. The proposed changes of this ordinance do allow this. So I bring it up because the ordinance changes being proposed are not up to Middletown quality of life standards, and it makes proposing a public hearing to consider the changes not really good use of our time, in my opinion.
Vice President?
Terry, I also was going to pull this off because I didn't like some of the things that I was reading in here.
It's supposed to be advertised.
For example, rather than including a 35-foot maximum building height, include a reference to section 603 regarding maximum allowed building heights, 35 feet in limited business and 40 feet in general business. So I think 40 is too high. So the other thing, a couple other things that I read was the proposed amendment is generally consistent with the Middletown Comprehensive Plan. Peter, what does that mean? Generally consistent, so.
That is one of the requirements, so in order, the zoning code has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Generally, I'm picking the word generally
consistent is-
because
that is
that's
the
kind of
term-
broad.
That's the term
And
of
so,
art.
do I generally follow laws, or do I just don't follow?
It
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess, I don't want to call it boilerplate, but that is sort of the standard language that goes along with these, and one of the findings that the planning board has to make when they're recommending a change to you is they have to make a finding that they believe it's generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. So that is one of the requirements, and they took that action. This is my suggestion, because this is on tonight simply for advertising and to come in front of you. Certainly, you'll have the opportunity to vet and review and discuss any of these issues. You also have the opportunity as individual council people to discuss these changes with the planning department outside of the meeting to get some more information. But-
That's all great, but I still have another question. So,
Sure.
number 4 on the third page, under 27A07, design standards. The minimum building front yard setback from public or private roads within in part of the internal roadway system for the development plan area shall be 5 feet. So, I'm gonna, I guess, I know you said we have to advertise, and I get all that. These are just the things that caught my, I know the town back when wanted to move, like West Main Road, there was a conceptual plan where, you know, it becomes a one-lane road each way, there was trees, a median in the middle with trees, and all the buildings were up front, and the idea was to have parking behind the buildings. That, to me, that's what that's saying.
And this would be within the development itself, as opposed to public road leading into the development. So this would be part of the.
But it's still
part of the
saying you
internal
can,
development.
it's still saying you can allow buildings 5 feet from the roadway.
From the internal roadway, so you'd have the building, you'd have a 5-foot wide sidewalk or walkway, and then you'd have
Yeah,
the roadway
I don't
itself.
think it's right, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, we'll be able to
And I'm
vet
not
this.
the
We'll
one-
be able
I'm
to
not the
vet
one to
that when we
explain
at the
this.
public hearing. I don't want to get into vetting this too
Okay.
depth tonight. Counselor Flynn.
This is a procedural question for you, Mr. Regan. When we get a letter like this from one of the departments, or wherever it might come from on an ordinance change, are we required to have a public hearing to pursue it? Or can we say, you know what, this is, we don't like what we see in the first run, if they came back with things that we thought were valid, we'll go forward for a public hearing, but there's too many things wrong with it, and send it back and rework it if they want to?
You don't have to, you're not required to advertise it, you can't take any action on it without advertising it. And advertising and having a hearing allows you to at least have a conversation, to discuss it, to let the planning board know, to ask questions of the board, to ask questions of the planner as to what the intent was and what the changes actually do. And then if you're still unsatisfied with it, to suggest amendments or changes, or send it back with some direction as to what it is you'd like to see. But if you don't engage in the process at all, then you don't have that opportunity. The planning board obviously is trying to bring the zoning not only into compliance with the comp plan, but to do it in a way that encourages mixed-use development, because that has been one of the goals of the comp plan, is to actually encourage, not simply to pass an ordinance, but to actually encourage mixed-use development. And they have a feeling that, for whatever reason, that's not taking place. So I would encourage you to at least have the conversation with the board, and then if you're not happy with what they've presented, ask them to change it or change it yourself.
You know, the first thing when I read this, the first thing came to mind was West Main Road that the council said no to. That's the first thing that crossed my mind.
Well, this is a ordinance that's already on the books, was part of the priorities that the council set when the comp plan was adopted, and tasked the planning board with adopting a mixed-use ordinance, which they did, and these are proposed revisions to that ordinance.
So would it be possible, just to save time, if there's enough counselors that are unhappy with some of the changes that are being proposed, that we simply, at this point, vote to either send it back to the planning board or to go forward?
You can do
Let me
either
answer
one.
that,
It's up to the pleasure and discretion of the council. You can accept it and order it advertised and have the discussion then, or you can you can receive it and not advertise it. But the only thing I would encourage you to do is if you're not happy, if the council as a whole is not happy with what's being presented, is that there be some process to continue the discussion to get to a point where we have an ordinance in place that you are happy with.
So the motion would be to receive it and have a public hearing, and those who didn't want to spend the time or thought that it wasn't in a form to spend time on could vote in the negative, and those who thought we should have more conversation could vote in the positive?
Yeah, sure.
So that's the vote? Like, or is-
That's
the
that's
motion?
one of the options, yes.
So is that the motion? that's
So the
rejecting
the
that
motion that would typically be made in this situation is to receive it and have it advertised.
Advertise for
hearing.
public hearing.
Yes,
Yes.
let's move on.
I don't understand why we wouldn't want to listen to their logic behind it. There's obviously some logic behind it, but that's just my feeling.
Since having been through it already, many meetings on this, just, it's been very well vetted, and there are reasons
Well,
behind all of those things that
that's-
were
that's-
left prohibited, in the original list.
okay. I can appreciate your opinion on that. Council Von
So I
Velez.
share.
I just want to say, out of respect for the planning board, the work that they've done and so forth, I think they deserve to have their work brought forward so that it can have a public hearing. We can always change what comes forward, but I'm talking about respect for the people that we appoint to office. I would not, if I were sitting in their shoes, I'd say to myself, why am I doing this? If they're not even going to give me the respect of listening to what I have to say. That does not mean that the council has to rubber stamp everything, but it certainly does mean that they deserve respect.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And we're not rubber stamping it. What we're doing is just affording everybody the opportunity to discuss it. Listen to their logic behind it and discuss it. Councilor Lombardi.
So, the way I see this, Terry, is not all of us up here had the benefit to sit through all of those planning board meetings and listen to the logic that was put into the original mixed-use ordinance, something that I've been in favor of for many years, since I've been on the council now for 6 years almost, because it gives developers options that they don't have now. That said, I think it's fair to have the planner in front of us, to have at least the chairman of the planning board and maybe others, and to have the public give some input, so that the rest of the council can make an informed decision. We don't have the information you have. We
That's
didn't.
why I'm
Right.
sharing it.
So,
saying-
well, you're not sharing it because you're not giving us point for point on why everything was changed, and we're not gonna get into that, I don't think, and I hope not tonight. But all I'm saying is that I want the opportunity to have the planning board chairman and the planner in front of us so that we can ask questions. I have some concerns of my own about some of this. Not saying I'm in favor or against it, because I think the mixed-use ordinance and its concept and the way the way the comprehensive plan suggests that this happen is important. But for us to debate it now without having the respect and having for the planning board and the planner to be here in front of us to ask questions is wrong. I think we need to move this forward so we can have a public hearing and let everybody get it out on the table.
Okay, to move this forward, and we're gonna move it forward, we're not gonna have a public hearing tonight. Councilor Flynn, if you wanna make a motion not to put it to a public hearing, your prerogative, do it now, no further discussion.
I would put the motion in the negative. I would put the motion to receive the communication and to order advertising.
Well, that's what was said.
That's the motion. It can be voted against.
I don't understand.
Yeah, please explain that to us.
Should we give just a standard motion to receive and order it advertised for a
Yes,
public hearing?
yes.
Public hearing.
What should we have in front of us now?
Yes,
Yes.
The same thing?
Same thing.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Let's move on.
So we have the motion.
And it's been
Do we have a second?
Yes, we have.
All in favor of presenting it and have it advertised for a public hearing, signify by raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item number 11, application of special event permit from the Cape Coders Chapter of Family Motor Coach Association for the annual Second Beach Rally, Memorial Day weekend. Motorhome rally to be held at Second Beach parking lot on Thursday, May 21, 2020 through Monday, May 25, 2020.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second?
A motion and a second to grant? Okay, we're gonna have some discussion on it first. Counselor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. This only caught my eye because the event is tripling in size from 45 people and 20 vehicles in 2019 to an estimated 125 people and 60 vehicles for 2020. And I just want to make sure this wasn't a red flag for Memorial Day next year.
Okay. Mr. Viveras, you wanna weigh in?
I think it's the weekend before.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anton Viveras, 110 Indian Hill Road. I know several people who walk the beach with their dogs in the morning, and they've asked me a couple of times. They've been down there, and after an event, they've seen empty alcoholic beverage bottles at the beach and site, and I said I would ask. This sort of got my attention. If they're asking for, when special permits for special uses is asked, is that requirement waived for that special event where they be able to have alcoholic beverages at the beach?
No, there's
No.
no alcohol beverages
Oh.
allowed at the beach.
I'm-
It's an
I'm-
ordinance.
I know. but,
Is it
it-
an ordinance when
it
the
was
beach
asked,
is open, though? or is it an ordinance?
alcoholic beverage
Peter,
containers.
weigh in on this. It's an
The-
ordinance,
the ordinance of-
365 days a
there's
year,
no
isn't
li-
it?
It's 365,
365 days a
24/7.
year.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Viveras.
No,
All right.
that was my question.
Thank you
I was
very much.
asked and I said I would.
365, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant said special event permit. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right.
Item number 14, licenses. Application of Middletown High School for homecoming parade leaving MHS to Valley Road, East Main Road, Wyatt Road, Turner Road, finishing at Gaudet Football Field to be held on Friday, October 18, 2019 at 4:30 PM. Applicant requests that all fees be waived.
Motion to grant said special event permit, waive all fees, subject to the receipt of Rhode Island Department of Transportation event permit.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any conversation?
I want to go. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 15, an ordinance of the Town of Middletown, this is the second reading. An ordinance and amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown, Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 92C, Litter Control, see attached ordinance.
Motion to add 5 after Middletown Police Department, the building inspector zoning officer. Motion to amend under 6, penalties under B, penalties, the fine to read $250. Motion to adopt said ordinance on the second reading as amended.
Counselor Flynn.
I had additional input after the first reading. Is this the correct time to do that?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So I was pondering Councilor Rogers' comments about the receptacle issue and the requirement when the town is actually removing receptacles. And Ms. Agee's comments about signage. And I was wondering if instead of requiring those items right off the bat in the ordinance, if, and I know signage isn't reported anywhere in the ordinance, that perhaps the last section, or the last sentence of section 4 could be eliminated. That would take care of the receptacle requirement, but then add under penalties, something along the lines of, after the first violation, it's not less than $100, and installation of 1 trash receptacle and pay for ordinance signage. And the second violation could be the fee and installation of an additional trash receptacle. So you're not requiring it, and, do as I say, not as I do. You are making it a consequence, the receptacle issue. And you're also getting signs up there in the problem areas, which would be the areas that are in violation.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're suggesting that we take the money and fines and use them to purchase signs?
No, I'm that instead, because the town is not putting out litter receptacles, that instead, under penalties, we consider, like, for instance, the first penalty would be the fine, and then they're required to put out a receptacle, and they get to pay for ordinance signage.
Who is they?
Who is the violator?
Which I just asked you that question.
Oh, did I not understand? the question?
Apparently not.
Apologies.
What I said was, you're asking the violator, the fines from the violator to pay for signage.
Oh, no, it would be, well, in addition, if you wanted
But
to be
it's-
part of the fines, yes, it could be.
But I thought you just said that for the second time.
I probably did.
You did.
But,
Okay.
you could look at the fines.
And I don't, and I'm not in agreement with that. I don't think we should be allocating fines like that, to where the money
I
goes.
just,
Go ahead, Peter.
the town should have the flexibility to, if it wants to purchase receptacles and use the money from the fine, the flexibility to do that or not do it, or to put the signage up and not rely upon enforcement to pay for that, or to, because it may be a situation where we don't need additional signage, and now you've got that. So this sort of tracks the language of state law as well, with a fine, the ability to require
It's allocated.
community service of picking up trash.
Right. And it's allocating where the fine money would go.
There's one thing that I would, one additional change to what the Vice President mentioned, that I would add and provide it to you. In Section 4, I would add the word private, so in the first sentence, the owner or person in control of any private property, because the intent of that section is to apply to owners of private property that are open to the public and have a tendency to generate litter and trash. So I would suggest adding the word private there,
Okay.
on Section 4.
Yeah, I think that covers it. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna vote for the ordinance, but I would entertain just a thought. On section B, where it says any person convicted of a second subsequent violation, I think $250 is not enough. I think anybody that's a repeat offender, I think $250 is not enough. Not less than $250. I would suggest, you want to entertain it, fine. If you don't, it should be $500. If you do it again, something's up. It's not right. You know, one person, one time, you get it, you got a fine, and I get it, and maybe if you follow the rules from there on forward, it's okay. But when you do it again, $250 is not enough money. You need to hit them in the pocketbook. Get their attention. Just my opinion. If anybody wants to go for that, I'm willing to, support it, but just a thought.
I'm in agreement. I think, I'll get to you in a minute. I'm in agreement. I think, because the fine is up too. It doesn't mandate the fine to be that. It's up to, I agree with that. I think appropriately it should be up to maybe $500.
Well, what Councilman Lombardi is suggesting is that the minimum fine on a second or subsequent
Should be
offense
500.
would be 500.
Okay.
Not less than 500 and up to 1,000, because that's the maximum we can find in the municipal court, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So I'm just saying, you're a repeat offender, after you've been whacked once, you don't get the message? I think you need to get their attention. I think it should be $500.
Okay. One moment.
Certainly.
Counsel Flynn.
So, I'm not opposed to Council Lombardi's suggestion, nor am I in favor of it. I think that this is, ordinances are changed all the time, and let's see if the second offender's behavior doesn't change with this level of fee penalty, and see if it needs to be changed. I'm just not sure that I'm in favor of.
When you're talking about a business, Terry, that's violating this, $100 is chump change.
Okay, thank
They'll
you.
violate it again.
Counsel Santos.
I agree with Mr. Lombardi, but I have a question. Who's going to keep track of violations and how many times?
They automatically would pop up if a guy was a repeat offender.
Right, they would be tracked by, ultimately, it would be tracked by the court, so.
All right, thank you for the answer.
Counsel Toronto.
No, I appreciate Peter, Sean, for putting the work into this, getting us something we can hang our hat on. There's a lot of momentum behind keeping Middletown clean, so I want to thank everyone for their momentum behind this. I've noticed the town, Sean, I can tell that you've probably talked to the people in the departments, because I can see that town is, in certain areas, there's not trash where we would find it commonly. But I do think that we do have to have someone out there enforcing this. You see that we have the building inspector and the zoning officers. I mean, people ask me if they have enough time to control all the construction that's going on. Can they also enforce this litter control, you know, in parking lots, buildings? I mean, is this something they can actually put in their schedule?
So the reason we're putting the ordinance in place is so that we can approach the businesses that generate the trash. Jack has already started doing that. I mean, we do have major commercial areas that are the generators, and that's what we're focused on. I know we've talked a lot about the businesses in the 2 Mile Corner area. This morning I reviewed a number of letters that have gone back and forth, not from Jack's office to those businesses, as well as the letters that they're generating to their tenants to make sure that they're cleaning their dumpsters, picking up trash, dealing with the paint chips and all the other different issues. And I think that's, at the end of the day, you know, and I guess this is where, you know, I've been working with Peter, we want to message that we want the businesses, the residents to police themselves, so we don't have to take the tax dollars away from schools or roads or whatever it may be, you know, for an enforcement program, you know, which hopefully at the end of the day, we all take pride in our town.
Right.
So what I'm seeing, similar to what you said, I am seeing positive results in my office. I can send some of those emails out.
Yep.
But the landlords, so if Jack can hold one landlord responsible for a bunch of tenants, then there's a multiplier effect to this, and I think we can be successful that way.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
And just to follow up on that, if you go over to Benny's, where that area is, and Riverhead Building Supplies, there's a lot of trash over the fence and in that waterway.
I have
that's over
reported
there.
that to Jack, and that is an area that's being addressed with the property owner.
Okay.
So that I'm
And will there be
100% certain of that.
And we talk about signage, and I know that's something we can explore going down, but will there be a number that people could call? So if they're residents in town and they notice that there's a lot of waste blowing out of a container from a contractor, they'd be able to contact the town. Who would they contact? The building inspector, or would it be entered as an issue? How do you see that working?
What I'd like to do is maybe just take some time to sit down and formalize that with the staff. That
Okay.
way we can distribute that at one point in time, so we
Great.
can make it clear.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Councilor Santos.
I often take a ride through Industrial Park or the Corporate Park. From Valley Road, go up Johnny Cake, and right on the corner, I've noticed it twice, there is a business that has storage containers, glass, I guess they're storage containers, they're glass, but around these storage containers, I'd say there's close to 100 white plastic bags. Somebody clue me? What is it? What are they storing in those white plastic bags? It's surrounding all the storage containers.
Yeah, the storage containers are related, I believe, to the Volvo Challenge, and those are supposed to be removed at some point in the near future. I've spoken to Jack about that. I'll follow up with him and then follow up with
And the
you.
white trash bags, what are they used? What-
I'd have to ask Jack.
Okay,
So,
thank
but I have brought up that issue, and we've been promised that those containers would be removed.
Thank you, Sean.
All right.
Okay.
Continue with the amendments on the
Yep,
motion.
motion to amend under number 6, penalties under B, penalties, the fine to read minimum $500, second offense.
Second.
I'm not done yet.
Not done
Sorry.
yet.
Nope, no problem. Motion to amend under number 4, owner to maintenance premises, the owner or person in control of any private property to be added. Done.
Second.
Okay. Any enforcement issues that we want to discuss? No? Okay. Okay. We have a series of amendments. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Item
So we have to adopt the ordinance. We adopted the amendment, we voted on the amendments. Not,
Vote as amended, so you should.
As
vote
amended.
As amended. I mean, you voted on, you seconded each one of those. You should vote on each amendment and then adopt as amended. So you should adopt it as
motion to
amended.
adopt as amended.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we couldn't have done that just as amended? We could have.
You could have,
Woodsy's very
that's okay.
Okay. All right.
Belts and suspenders.
That's all right.
Extra 5 minutes, Madam Clerk. Item number 16, an ordinance of the Town of Middletown. This is the second reading. An ordinance and amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown. Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 90, Animals, Section 90.5, Animal Waste Removal. See attached ordinance.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading.
Second?
Okay, motion and second to adopt. Any conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 17, communication of Anton Viveras with Enclosures RE, how to effectively regulate home sharing and short-term rentals.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Motion and second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Viveras?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Anton Viveras, 110 Indian Hill Road, Middletown. As you can see from the guide I gave you, entitled Effectively Regarding Regulating Short-Term Rentals, people sharing their homes have been commonplace for as long as there has been spare rooms and comfortable couches. Many communities are, for the first time, experiencing the many positive and negative consequences of an increased volume of strangers in residential communities. How to effectively regulate home sharing and short-term rentals has therefore suddenly become one of the hottest topics among local government leaders. Local regulations should be adapted to fit the local circumstances and policy objectives while explicitly factoring in that any regulation is only worth the paper it is written on if it can't be enforced in a particular and cost-effective manner and adapted to fit the local circumstances and policy objectives. There is one code I found that may help. If it is enforced. That is Chapter 152 Zoning Code, Article 16, Accessory Family Dwelling Units. If I may give the council a copy. I have some copies. May I present to the council?
Give them to the clerk, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
As you can see, Section 16 purpose states, the purpose of this subchapter is to allow parents, grandparents, children, and grandchildren of owner-occupied of single-family dwellings to live in a separate dwelling unit within the principal dwelling without converting the principal dwelling into a two-family dwelling. I have an experience on that. First of all, let me say that the ordinance that was passed, Chapter 9, General Regulations, Chapter 98, Short-Term Residential Lease, I think does cover if somebody purchases a home and they rent it and they are not living there. But Article 16, accessory family dwellings, should cover if the person doing the renting lives there. They shouldn't be able to rent a portion of their house unless it's a family member. I have come across that in my neighborhood where a house, they've got two apartments, one on each side of the house, and they live there, and I complained, and I was told that the Indian Hill property is being rented. However, it is not a short-term rental. Yet, I go on Airbnb, and here it is. They get a discount if they stay over 28 days. Arrangements, bedroom 1, double bed, bedroom 2, a bunk bed. Now, they're renting out portions of their house while living there, and when I complained about it, I was told, as I said, they're renting it, but it's not a short-term rental. 28 days. It's not like somebody bought a house and they're renting to somebody for however, and they don't live there. My problem is that I'm finding that some of our ordinances are not being enforced properly. And I wanted to bring that to the attention of the council, along with saying thank you for the ordinance on short-term rentals. But there is things, portion of houses that are being rented, and they're not being rented to family members, as Article 16 states, and I would just like the council to check into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 18. I put this on the docket, resolution of the council proclaiming November 30th, 2019, Small Business Saturday in the town.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
A motion and second to pass, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I put this on the docket. It's hard to realize that there's over 30 million small businesses in the United States, which represent like 97+% of all business in the United States. And I think it's a day that we show our appreciation to the local small business people in our community by getting out and patronizing their businesses, in addition to the normal patronizing that we do. So I just thought it was appropriate, and I'd ask that on that day that everybody try to get out and spend some money to us local businesses.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 20, this is a memorandum for myself, strategic plan retreat meeting.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Motion second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I put this on the docket, and I wanted everybody to, I'd like to schedule a strategic plan retreat meeting. That would be open to the public, and individuals are welcome to attend and observe. However, this meeting is not intended to be interactive with the general public, as this time will be set aside for the town council to discuss their vision and goals, receive information from our town administrator, his department heads, make inquiries, and provide our town staff with policy direction, comments from the council. This council, I certainly do, and I know this council does, believe in transparency. And I strongly feel that the general public should have the opportunity to at least observe it. To have them interact with us, it could get lengthy, it could get a little out of control, but I think that having them have the opportunity to sit in and listen to what's going on is appropriate. And I'd like to ask our town administrator, if this is approved, to set the agenda for this retreat in advance with his department heads to facilitate his leadership vision of where he believes, in line with what he's heard from the council, of a vision that we should be discussing. I'd like to see us, if at all possible, I'd like to schedule this retreat plan on a Saturday. And I think that's sometime, and I know we're coming up with the holidays, maybe November, December, a little tough, but I was thinking maybe even in January, one Saturday in January, we could have a retreat. We could sit down, we could hear from our town administrator, his vision in line with directives he's received from us. His department heads would be there. We could feel and listen to them, their visions for their departments individually going forward. And I think it's something that would be extremely beneficial to all of us. And again, I wish I could open it up to the interaction with the public, but it would just, it could potentially be too lengthy. So I don't want to do that. Vice President.
So I think it's a great idea. I'm going to support it. The only thing I wish there was some way the residents could forward their ideas beforehand.
Why not?
Because it could be lengthy, and I think it's important we get the input from people, because, you know, there's 7 people up here with with Sean and his staff, you know, trying to generate ideas, but think about, you could have thousands of ideas out there potentially, you know? So I think it's important that they come and listen, but I also think it's important that they have some type of input. I agree that it would be extremely lengthy, but either we do one of two things. Either we somehow gain their ideas beforehand, whether it's the website or emails to us or wherever that avenue is, or we do it in 2 meetings. I don't know.
Well, we could gain some insight from them with, via the website in advance. We're gonna,
How about a survey or something out there?
we'll advertise for it, we'll advertise it, and and in that advertisement, Madam Clerk, maybe we'll put, you know, please submit any ideas or thoughts that you have, and again, we'll just emphasize that they're not gonna be able to interact, because it'll definitely get way too far out of hand. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you. Ms. Clancy, I have some handouts. I'm going to just hand them this way and
Sure, and then I
pass
can
them
come
down.
back.
So, I actually had to look up strategic planning for municipalities, and it's really a thing. So I'm kind of excited about it and to be part of it. And everybody's time is really tight, so in an interest to make the exercise most effective, there are 2 suggestions that I'd like to make, and I appreciate Councilor Roderick's suggestion, because that's one of them. I actually, from 2 different companies, when my reading, that develop strategy, software tools for strategy execution. This company, ClearPoint Strategy, I think that's the first cover page there, had an article called Strategic Planning in Local Government, the main components and examples. And on page 6 of the article, which you have a copy of, it states item number 1 of the section that's titled 8 Things to Keep in Mind for Strategic Planning in Government Organizations. And number 1 is involve your stakeholders. And it says this could be your staff and or your citizens. If you go through the whole process without their input, and then your staff or citizens don't agree, you've created a headache for yourself. So along that same line, the other article is from a company called iCompass, and they write on an article titled How Local Governments Can Improve Strategic Planning. And I believe it's on page 3 of the article, in a section titled 5 Parts to Every Strategic Plan. They say, and I quote, "The vision is what the team wants to see in the future, which requires working with and listening to citizens and acquiring an understanding of what services they want and need from their government." So my first suggestion is to, yes, get that input from the citizens, whether it's on site or it's by email, but I think that it's going to be worth our time, that's something that we do need. And the second suggestion comes from the Municipal Elected Officials Institute of Government, who essentially say that using an outsider or a consultant as the facilitator often produces better results because of complicated relationships and bringing baggage to the process, and staff facilitating is not able to fully participate because they're focused on facilitating. And I think that Mr. Brown has a big role in this. Also, a third party usually can be more direct than a member of staff. So I would like to consider, or maybe get a quote for having an independent third party facilitator in for this event.
Mr. Brown, what's your thoughts on that? And then I'll share mine with everybody.
Just a couple thoughts. Just to remind the council authorized the community study that's ongoing right now. So we will have a considerable amount of data from the community that will hopefully help highlight areas where the community feels that we need to make improvements, areas where we're already doing well, and hopefully we can use that as a gauge to make some decisions. As far as corporate involvement, consultants, third parties. So my experience over the last 20 years is I've watched many of our neighbors in Rhode Island hire consultants, and I've generally watched those efforts fail. They don't seem to do well. I think we've done well in Middletown. We've used Vince Petrone a number of times. You know, I think it's a very informal process. I think he's sort of helped kick some things forward. But generally, I think when we've met as a group and we've had uncomfortable and comfortable conversations, we've had the school committee there, not there, we've usually come out at the end of the day with a prioritized list of what we want to accomplish, and we work towards that. I think, so for me personally, I see the strategic plan as a living sort of document process. It's something that we should do on an ongoing basis, and it's something that, you know, would be reoccurring. So do I think we should hire someone to be a full-time facilitator and make this a bigger process? I don't think that's necessary. I think we've been more successful doing it ourselves. You know, we may consider bringing Vince in or someone like Vince on a less formal basis, but to help us just get unstuck when we need to. That would be my suggestion. And many of you know Vince. You've worked with him before. I think there's a level of comfort and trust with him. He knows the staff. There's a lot of humor to Vince, and
It sure is.
so you know, maybe something like that would work out well.
Okay, personally, I don't think we need a facilitator. Personally, I think this docket item, as stated, has all the stakeholders involved in it. I think by putting it out there to the public in advance, advertising and letting them know they can go on the website and send some questions in to us ahead of time, to each of the counselors, I think that's the way to go. We've done this in the past. Mr. Brown, I don't see any need you kind of shocked me tonight, Councilor Flynn. You've been frugal lately with certain things, and you want to spend some money on a facilitator.
I knew that was coming up.
You knew I was going to give it to you. And so I'm a little shocked with that tonight, you know, that you want to spend some money to have somebody facilitate what I believe we've done in the past very successfully. We've done these in the past. This isn't our first strategic plan. We've done them years ago. I think it's time to do another one. I think all the stakeholders are there. I think open it to the public so they can send some comments in is a great idea. I think having them, afford them the opportunity to be there, to listen to it is prudent. It's transparent in what this council should be doing, has done, and will continue to do. But you surprised me with you want to spend some money
Well, I
tonight.
actually didn't say spend the money. I said get the quotes to see what it would
Well,
cost.
that's spending. Don't try to
Well,
back out of that one. That's,
no,
that's
and-
spending the money.
And I'm just forwarding, when I was doing my research, there was a common theme of suggestions to make it most
You know,
effective.
you find that in large municipalities. This is Middletown, Rhode Island. This is hometown. We sit around the table with one another. We have the ability to look one another in the face and tell people how we feel, what our visions are, and hopefully not hold on to animosities, but hold on to a good going ahead, working attitude that I know we will do. So I'm not in favor of even thinking about a facilitator. Council Lombardi.
So, when I hear about engaging the business community, obviously that's a great idea, and that's part of this, but we have a great resource in Ashley Medeiros, Connect Greater Newport. She has been out in Middletown. She's worked with all the business owners. She's got data, and she's a great facilitator, and she's free. And she's a resource that this town has used in the past, I know that, and the Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission has used her in the past. And so if we're gonna reach out, I know MEDAC, people in MEDAC know Ashley.
We use her at MEDAC, she's a
We
member.
know, and she's a great resource and a wealth of experience, and she won't cost us anything.
Council Flynn.
Well, I think for free, it's worth
I
it.
killed your mic on purpose, and now
I
they brought you
thought- I
another one to
figured that.
use. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, I think especially for free, it's worth a try to allow Mr. Brown to focus. And since it is best practices to, consider a facilitator, there were great reasons as to why. And I think if she's available and if it's free, that it should be taken advantage of to see how it works this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's vote on it.
Okay, motion to schedule the strategic retreat meeting on either January 4th or January 11th.
Does anybody have any preference, January 4th or January 11th, Saturday?
The 11th is the only date I think that I'm free. January 11th, yes.
That's the only date you're free?
And December 7th.
Let's go for
Pearl Harbor
January
Day.
the 4th.
All right.
I think we need that facilitator.
Okay, I don't believe it, so we'll put that to a separate vote if you want to. Anybody in favor of having a facilitator?
Second.
Okay? Do we have a second? I'm not
Second?
making that motion.
Oh,
Do you want to make the motion?
we need a motion for it?
Yeah.
Well, that would be if, do we have a specific person? I think that
No,
Ms.
you
Medeiros was.
recommended that we hire a facilitator, and it was acquire, put a request out, spend money for a facilitator.
Well, the
Now,
discussion doesn't warrant that motion, but the motion, the discussion might warrant the motion if Ashley Medeiros is available to
well, you just
act in
heard of
that.
that. We don't know if she's,
Complicate everything.
Yeah.
Why don't we just go?
if you want to make a motion to have a facilitator, we've done this. I know how Mr. Brown is as a facilitator. I don't think there's another member of this council would have an issue with that.
Well, after
except
that
you.
comment,
Except
I'm
you.
sure they won't.
Why?
Why?
Well, why don't we, I don't know that it needs to be a motion. Can we see how the event is going to play out and
Well, let me
what-
do this. Let's put it, let's not, yeah, I know. Why are we, there's so much.
Oh, try something new.
This
Council
will be new for
Lombardi,
you anyways, won't it?
Council Lombardi
Okay,
put it
so
on the
it'll be
table.
your first
Well,
time.
maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why we need a facilitator after, the
Okay.
long-standing.
All right. Is anybody on the council in favor of having a facilitator?
Yes?
Is there anybody opposed to having a facilitator?
Opposed.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Councilor Flynn. All right, now, let's get back to the dates. The only date that you're good for, or you cannot be here? Don't
I have
make, don't
two
make it
dates.
sweet to us.
I have 2 dates for which I am available. December 7 on a Saturday or January 11.
Okay.
Motion to schedule the strategic meeting on January 11th.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done, January 11th. Wasn't that easy? Okay. All right. Item number 21. Memorandum of the Council of Lombardi with enclosures, RE, a wish come true.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
A motion is second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Council Lombardi?
Mr. President, members of the council, I'm requesting that we purchase a $100 sponsorship for the Wish Come True, which is in its 37th year, providing wishes for young children. Actually, they're children up the age of 3 to 18 who have life-threatening illnesses. I know we're all aware of what Wish Come True does and the great things they do. The average cost of a wish is $5,000 to $7,000 per year. And the Wish Come True this year is about to surpass 40 wishes. They're a great resource. I know some kids that have been the recipient of some of these, and it is so well needed and well deserved. So I would ask your support for this tea sponsorship.
Okay.
Okay, motion to sponsor a tea in the amount of $100 to be appropriated from the council president's discretionary fund.
Second?
Okay, motion is second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 22.
Thank you.
Memorandum of the Town Administrator with enclosures, RFP, for Senior Housing Project Manager.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
We have a motion and second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, this is the RFP based on input from the Senior Housing Advisory Committee. It is a proposal, or it's a solicitation that would allow for proposals to hire a project manager. There are 4 main areas of responsibility for the manager to assist the town in defining our project. The second is developing the project scope, agreements, solicitation for a developer operator. Third set of responsibilities would be to review proposals, solicitations, as well as the contract documents, and then finally, to provide oversight services through the commissioning of the project. Working with the finance office today, if the council approves this evening, we would advertise on October 11th. There would be a question period that would be open and closed on October 25th. Any addendas that are necessary to be issued would be issued on October 30th. We would open bids on November 6th. Recommendations would be submitted November 27th. I'm sorry, recommendations would be due November 27th, trying to meet the docket deadline for December 9th, with the council meeting awarding on December 16th. So just to be clear, this would be to hire the project manager that would then be responsible, just to be clear, going out to solicit proposals for someone to develop and operate the senior housing that we desire. So that would be the next phase of the project. So I would suggest and recommend the council authorize the finance director to issue the solicitation.
Is there a reason why, and maybe I'll direct this to the people that were on the committee, and to you, Mr. Brown, that we wouldn't go right to an RFQ on this? Get a quote out there right away so we could shorten this up a little bit?
So I think the council, from the committee's original presentation, had decided that it would hire a project manager, that it was going to follow this two-phase approach. So I think that was answered at that last meeting. I think the second piece is that there's still some work that needs to be done to define the project. So until that's completed, it would be difficult to go out just for a proposal.
Okay, so I'm only thinking of, the timeline with this, because I know we gotta be coming up on a very sensitive, a very short window here to make this happen. Do you see that we're gonna make it happen in line with this timetable, or do you think we need to fast forward this a little bit?
Well, that's going to be the one issue. So following this timeline, we would have someone in, with a contract agreement by the end of the calendar year. And looking at previous conversations we've had about this, the enrollment period or the application period to apply for tax credits is somewhere, as I understand it, in the February-March timeframe. So whoever gets on the ground would have to issue this next proposal to give a developer operator in-house. I'm not sure how they would apply for tax credits in the next round. So that would be fiscal, whatever, calendar year 2020. I see this as something that's going to get bumped back, that part of the project to 2021. That would be the first time we would apply, and what we've been told is typically that would take, 3 cycles potentially to get the tax credits. So if that's part of the the capital stack financing for the project, now we're looking at 2024 before we see a project. So the timing is difficult. It should be clear that when we get someone on board, we're bumping up against the debt. I think we'll bump past the next deadline for tax credits. So it would be another cycle before we get an application in.
Mr. President?
Councilor Flynn.
To just address the timeline situation, if I have my information from the subcommittee correct, it's a 5-year process regardless. The design and permitting is the first 2 years, so we wouldn't be up for the tax credit application this spring regardless. So we're really not missing anything. I just wanted to put everyone's minds at rest that we're right on track.
Mr. Brown, is that a fair statement Councilor Flynn just made, or is that an opinion of Councilor Flynn's?
This would be from the vast interviews and research that the subcommittee did.
It's accurate.
My understanding is, and I guess I go back to the meeting we had in 2017, December 2017. You would want to get your plan or your project submitted for the tax credits. Once that happens, then you're looking at 3 cycles to get those credits to kick. I don't disagree that during that 3-year period you're doing other work, but each year we've got to get that first application in to get in line, and that would be my concern.
Yeah, I would assume there's other people going to be in this queue besides us.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. President?
Councilor Santos.
I don't know if I'll be alive to see this
You'll-
completed.
You'll be here.
Baloney. Mr. Brown, on this senior housing project manager, where is that money coming out of? A grant?
No, it would come from the general fund.
So that's
And,
money we're spending out of the
And it'll
general
be
fund?
right, and we would seek reimbursement from the project after it's, once the project's commenced.
And my second question would be, how long would this project manager be on board?
So the way that the proposal's set up is that person would be on board until the project's commissioned. The
Till it's
person,
complete?
correct, so we would want to make sure, so the goal is basically you have one-stop shopping. So I would have, the council would have, the town would have a resource on board that, says, here's the project, at the end of the day, the answer's 5. And they would be on board to make sure that the way the project is constructed, and, at the end of the day, the answer's 5.
Now, would he be on a payroll?
No, he would be a consultant.
He would be a consultant. Okay, thank you. You've answered my questions.
Counselor Toronto?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do, again, want to thank the subcommittee because there was a lot of interviewing going on, a lot of discussions to get this document prepared. There's a lot going back and forth between the council, the subcommittee, to the point where our request was to actually have this as a request for qualifications, just as the last meeting, request for qualifications. And when we got this document back, it's been changed to request for a proposal. So it's been going back and forth between the administration and the subcommittee. So I'm ready to let this go. I'm not 100% happy with it, but we can't hold this back any longer to try to get it perfect. So I'm going to support this, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to move this thing forward. So I'm going to vote for it this evening.
Thank you. I'm going to support it. And I just want to try to expedite it, I guess. But I'm certainly going to support it. Okay.
I think I'm definitely supporting it. I think unless you're involved in that committee, it was a committee that I've been in a lot of committees. It was completely different than anything I've ever experienced in any other committee, because the amount of knowledge that we've gained from, right down to the nitty-gritty. We had expert after expert after expert in. And we think that this was the right way, that it safeguards the town, that we have somebody that knows what they're doing, has done this time and time and time again, knows the shortfalls, knows the shortcuts to avoid, that type of stuff. So it was eye-opening, and it was consuming. I don't think I've been consumed by many committees. I was consumed by this committee because of the amount of technical knowledge and the amount of how this thing takes a life of its own, the different avenues it has to go through, and the 5-year plan, and you're right. You're probably not going to get the first or second crack. Maybe we will. I don't know, but that's the history of it. So we're really not missing anything. I know some of the councils were anxious. Where is this thing? Where is this thing? It took more than when we said initially, I raised my hand, I want to be in the committee because we can get this thing in 2 months. Boy, was I wrong. So once you got into it, it's like, there's no way that this is going to happen. And you don't want it to happen like that, because once you're into it, you realize what it takes and the involvement in it and the process that this thing has to go through and follow. It's consuming. So not just Dennis and Terry and myself, but the senior director, who's my sister, her staff that was on there.
Younger sister.
Huh?
Younger sister.
Older sister. So, it was just, they were awesome. Just hearing from different people. And like I said, we heard expert after expert after expert that actually did, and some of them didn't show up because it probably might still be going on. So I think this is the right thing. We put somebody in place that's an expert, that knows what they're doing, that knows their contacts, that can move this thing along. None of us are experts in this. You know, our staff, and not a dig at our staff, but that's not what they do for a living. So this is the right thing to do. I'm sorry it took a little longer.
No
But
apologies.
I think it's the right path to go.
Anxiously waiting for your motion.
I think we are all anxiously awaiting the motion.
Well said, Paul.
So, motion authorize the finance director to issue the RFP for senior housing project manager.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further conversation? Please identify yourself for the people at home.
Arlene Calder, Director of the Senior Center. I think it's important that the council really understands what Paul is saying, what Dennis is saying, and what Terry's saying. We had experts, yes. We had people from the community, in our own community, that we didn't even realize that worked in these fields. They came forward to give us their best advice on how to proceed. I think what's so important, and the most important thing that came out of this whole thing, was this project manager. Because at the end, after interviewing all these different individuals, we felt we needed somebody that was going to watch and look over Middletown's interest, not the developer's interest or any other person's interest, but the town of Middletown's interest, and see the project through, because this is probably the biggest project this town has ever done. So I just want to say that to you, and I thank Dennis and Terry and Paul and my seniors who were there every single meeting, listening, learning, and we all came out of this so much wiser. In the past, the town has always used one company, and this brought an eyesight like you've never seen before us, to what is out there, what is different, how things can be done differently. And the comparisons were unbelievable. So thank you all, and thank you for supporting this.
Okay, we have a motion, and it's been
Thank
seconded
you.
to authorize the finance director to issue the RFP for the senior housing project manager. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Yay.
Memorandum of MPC Director through the Town Administrator, request to submit a Van Buren Foundation Capacity Building Grant.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
The motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Requesting the council approve a grant for $7,500, no match required, that was submitted by Lori Verderosa to the Van Buren Foundation. The purpose of the grant is to pay for training, capacity building. The Prevention Coalition are working on their ability to raise revenues outside of asking for it from the town council. They've been attending classes. This would be a continuation of that, and basically putting together a development program for our wellness programs here at the town.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Okay, item number 24, communication to the finance director and tax assessor
Can you
with
approve it?
enclosures.
Just-
Well, we received it.
You need a motion to authorize, just under your own policy, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Okay, motion to authorize the application for the grant.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 24, communication to finance director and tax assessor with enclosures, RE, collector abatements, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second.
A motion is second to receive.
Mr. President?
Councilor Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the past, with Mr. Brown's permission, I've gone in to see our tax assessor and talk to him about the abatements. And it cuts down on council time in asking all the questions, and he doesn't have to be here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it today, and what a surprise that I got when he personally called me and asked if I had any questions on the abatement list, and I was really quite surprised. I thanked him for it, and I got my answers without taking the time in questioning him here and taking the time. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Flynn.
I'm going to share those kudos. I also need to do a shout out to our tax assessor, George Durgan, for the additional explanations that he provided to the council. That anticipation of inquiry for those standout items is a huge time saver in the meeting. And so
Yep.
thank you, Mr. Durgan, and great job.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded to receive this communication. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 25, resolution of the council, RE, collector abatements, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass that resolution.
Second?
Okay, motion is second. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 26, communication of the tax assessor with enclosures, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 27, resolution of the council, cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 28, memorandum of the finance director through the town administrator with enclosures FY 2019 budget adjustments as of June 30th, 2019.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
A
Second?
motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Mark?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. In front of you, you have budget adjustments for the school department, the sewer fund, and the Parks and Recreation Fund. This is as of June 30, the end of the fiscal year. For the school department, these are adjusting for the budget to actual, so this is making the budget match what actually happened during the year. The school department is adjusting their special revenue funds, which include federal and state grants. Their budget is decreasing $141,000. They have private grants and donations, which is decreasing by $23,000. The capital projects funds, which includes the bond projects, the town CIP, and the school CIP, that is being decreased by $1,069,000. And the enterprise funds is being decreased by $89,000 for a total decrease in the school's budget of $1,943,000. That makes the ending school budget $40,015,623 and a combined town budget, general fund and school, of $70,575,415. On the sewer fund, we have an adjustment for a principal payment being reclassified from the operating as to a grant. So during the year, after the budget was adopted, we found out that we were able to get a grant for principal payment of the revenue bond that was issued. There's also adjustments for capital projects, which included projects that were passed in a prior budget, and that happened this year because it's a multiple-year project. That includes the Upper Easton's Point project, which is funded from the bond that was passed. And we had the town line sewer, which is funded from the fund balance. In the Parks and Recreation, we have the removal of grants that were budgeted but we did not receive or it did not occur. We also have a capital project that's being deferred from this year's budget to next year. We recorded a grant that we received during the year for the bonfire nights. And we have beach capital items that occurred during the year that we have included in the budget. I ask you to approve these budget adjustments. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any council have any questions? Council Lombardi.
Mark, maybe you don't know, but on the school department budget, does that reduction in the bottom line include prior year impact date from the federal
I
government?
did see that. It did include that they did.
Do you know how much it was?
Yep, it was, a decrease by 102,070.
So it decreased,
102,000.
decreased by $102,000?
Yeah.
And do you know what they're anticipating this year? Because I know it's always a year behind, it's always prior year.
I do not know, and I believe they said they didn't know at the last meeting.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Just, there's typically more than 1 year. There's multiple lots of money. It's not prior year and current year, it's prior year, and when the federal government finally reconciles those balances, then we get those. Mrs. Von Vels is saying yes, so I'm pretty sure I'm right. So there's a lot of different things happening.
I know the superintendent supposedly, I guess she just got back from a conference regarding the prior year impact aid and whether or not we're gonna be getting any funds next year, and I don't know if she's come back with any kind of report on that.
So my position on this is we always get prior impact aid. It's always more than what is budgeted, and
Can we
So
get a-
we're good.
Can we get an answer on that? That would be nice.
yeah, we can,
Yeah,
but I'm
certainly.
sure I'm right. I'm sure
Certainly.
it's more than we budgeted.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay, item number 29, resolution of the council, RE FY 2019 budget adjustments as of June 30th, 2019, school department.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
A motion is second to pass. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 30, resolution of the council, RE FY 2019 budget adjustments as of June 30th, 2019, sewer fund.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
Okay, motion is second to pass. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 31, resolution of the council, RE FY 2019 budget adjustments as of June 30th, 2019, Parks and Recreations Fund.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
Have a motion is second to pass. Any further conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Boards and committees. Item number 22, email communication of Robert Johnson, RE, resignation from the Conservation Commission.
After 20 years, motion to receive said email communication with regret.
Second?
Absolutely.
And Mr.
He was a true asset to the Conservation Committee. Council Santos.
Mr. President, I would like to ask our town administrator to review the conservation, who hasn't been attending meetings, and do we still have a chairman of the conservation, of the committee? I'd
He'll look
appreciate-
into it.
I
Okay,
will
we have-
report back.
We have a motion and a second
Yes.
to receive email communication with regret. Any further conversation?
Yes.
Vice President.
Do we send, what do we send?
Send a letter thanking them and letting them know to come in to get a token of appreciation.
Okay, excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
Usually give them a clock.
Yeah.
After 20 years,
20 years,
you want
right.
a letter.
Clock, yeah. Well, I guess a letter, we spring them in and give them an option, clock, or what they want. Yeah. Okay, any further conversation? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be going into executive session. Executive session pursuant to provisions of RIGL, sections 42462, 42464, and 42465A, personnel, town administrator, land acquisition, litigation, review, discussion, and/or potential action and/or vote in executive session and/or open session.
Okay, motion to recess open session and reconvene in executive session.
Second?
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mary Beth.